So now we know a little bit about square roots, multiplying, dividing. Let's talk a little bit more about them. So the first thing for the box, we're going to talk about what's called conjugates. Okay, and this we'll use a little bit later, but it's good to have it right here. So conjugates, okay? So if you have something like square root of 6 plus square root of 3, for example, okay? The conjugate of that is you just change the middle sign or middle operation, okay? So if it's addition, you change it to subtraction. And if it's subtraction, you change it to addition, okay? And this is only for addition, subtraction, okay? So square root of 6 plus square root of 3, square root of 6 minus square root of 3, these are conjugates of each other, okay? Why do we like this? Well, if we multiply conjugates together, oops, square root of 6 minus square root of 3, oops, sorry, let me write that better. So square root of 6 plus square root of 3, square root of 6 minus square root of 3, okay? Well, remember, this is a plus b, a minus b, right? Or you can just FOIL, but a plus b, a minus b is just a squared minus b squared. So we just get square root of 6 squared, which is 6, and then square root of 3 squared, which is 3, okay? So then we get 6 minus 3, which is 3, okay? So what happens is when we take the conjugate of square roots, we actually get rid of the square roots, and that's another way we can rationalize a denominator, okay? Okay, before we do that, let's look at some other operations. So let's start with addition and subtraction. So 3 square root of 7 plus 11 square root of 7 minus 4 square root of 7, okay? What you kind of think about is that the square roots, the radicals, are like terms, okay? So that you can kind of think about like an x, okay? So that if you have the same radical, you can just add and subtract the coefficients, okay? So we can say, oh, no big deal. 3 plus 11 minus 4, which gives us 10 square root of 7, okay? Notice that the square root of 7 doesn't change, just like the x wouldn't change, okay? So you combine like radicals, okay? Okay, so what if you start off with something like square root of 18 plus square root of 50? So notice you can't combine these right away because they're not the same, okay? But what if we simplify them? So square root of 18 becomes square root of 9, square root of 2. Square root of 50 is square root of 25, square root of 2. Square root of 9 is 3, square root of 2. Square root of 25 is 5, square root of 2. So then you're like, oh, well, that's nice because now we have square roots of 2. So we can just add 3 plus 5 gives us 8, and then square root of 2. Okay, so kind of think about square root of whatever. If they're the same, it's just like if you're adding, subtracting an x. Okay. Okay, let's do one more before we move to a different operation. So what if we have 5 square root of 48 minus 4 square root of 12, okay? So same thing, let's simplify these and see if we get the same square root. So 5 square root of 48 is 16 and 3. 4 square root of 12 is 4 and 3, okay? So then we get 5 times 4 square root of 3, 4 times 2 square root of 3, 20 square root of 3 minus 8 square root of 3. So then we're good because we have both square root of 3. So we subtract and get 12 square root of 3. Okay. Okay. So adding, subtracting, you need like radicals. And then don't forget to simplify if you don't start off with like radicals. Okay. If there was something like a random square root of 5 out here, you can't do anything with that, so then your answer would just have another square root like so, okay? Okay, so now let's look at distributing and foiling, okay? So what if you have square root of 2 times square root of 6 plus 5, okay? So you just distribute. Remember that inside can multiply with inside, inside cannot multiply with outside, okay? So 2 and 6 are under the square root, so you can do square root of 12, and then square root of 2 times 5, so distribute. Square root of 2 times 5, can't do anything, so you kind of just put them together like so, okay? Then you check and say, oh, well, 12 is square root of 4 square root of 3. And so we get 2 square root of 3 plus 5 square root of 2. And here, like I was talking about in the previous example, the square roots aren't the same, so you can't do anything with it, which is fine. And you just leave the answer like so, okay? Okay. What if we were given something like this? Square root 11 minus 2 squared, okay? You can write these two out and then FOIL it, but also remember a plus b squared, right? Or a minus b squared. So kind of like a side note, a minus b squared, don't forget, is a squared minus 2ab plus b squared, okay? But like I said, if you wanted to write it out side by side and then FOIL, that's okay, okay? But let's try. So for this example, here's a and here's b, okay? So square root of 11 squared is just 11 minus 2 times square root of 11 times 2 plus 2 squared, which is 4, okay? So then you can do 11 plus 4 gives me 15 minus 2 times 2 gives you 4 square root of 11, okay? Okay, so then for the last one, before we talk about division, what if we actually want to FOIL? Square root of 6 minus 2 square root of 3, 4 square root of 3 plus 3 square root of 6. So here you would actually have to FOIL, okay? So FOIL, so square root of 6 times 4 square root of 3 is 4 square root of 18. Square root of 6 plus times 3 square root of 6 is 3 square root of 36. Negative 2 square root of 3 times 4 square root of 3 is 8 square root of 9. And then 2 square root of 3 times 3 square root of 6 is 6 square root of 18. Okay. So you can do this however you want to do it from here in terms of simplifying. Okay. So if you notice, you have 4 square root of 18 and negative 6 square root of 18. So even though it's not simplified yet, you can go ahead and subtract them to get negative 2 square root of 18. 3 times square root of 6 is 3 times 6, which is 18. 8 square root of 9 is 8 times 3, which is 24. Okay. So then you can do negative 2 square root of 9 square root of 2, and then 18 minus 24 is minus 6. And if we come up here, we get negative 2 times 3, which is negative 6 square root of 2, and then minus 6. Okay. So if you simplify another way, of course, you should get the same answer. Okay. Okay. What do we think? Good? Okay. 2 more. So let's talk about division, and let's talk about this conjugate thing. Okay. So here you'll be given something like negative 3 over square root of 10 plus square root of 5. Okay, and you have to simplify or divide. So what you have to do again is to get the square root out of the denominator. And the only thing to do here is to multiply by the conjugate of the denominator. Okay. So because the denominator is square root of 10 plus square root of 5, the conjugate would be square root of 10 minus square root of 5. And then you have to do it to the top. Okay. The numerators, you would just distribute. Okay, so numerators, you just distribute. And then denominators, you would FOIL. Okay. So here we just get -3 square root of 10, 10 plus 3 square root of 5. And then remember the conjugates, you can just do a squared minus b squared. So in this case, square root of 10 squared is 10, square root of 5 squared is 5, and it's always minus. Okay, so then you get -3 square root of 10 plus 3 square root of 5 over 5. Okay, and then that stays there. You might be tempted to cross out the 5s and the 10, but since 10 and 5 are in the square root and the numerator 5 is not, you can't do that. Okay, so then it just stays. Okay, so let's do this last one. So now we want to kind of preliminary start to solve equations, okay? We're going to look at them more in the next section, but let's look at something like so. Equals 1 minus square root of 2 over x. So notice that you are proportion. So remember, for proportions, we just cross multiply. So we will FOIL these and then just put these together, okay? So 4 square root of 15x, and then FOIL 2 plus square root of 3, 1 minus square root of 2, okay? So 4 square root of 15x, FOIL gives you 2 minus 2 square root of 2 plus square root of 3 minus square root of 6, okay? Notice that you can't do anything with the right side, square root of 2, square root of 3, square root of 6, so that stays. So then you just divide by the 4 square root of 15. So x equals 2 minus 2 square root of 2 plus square root of 3 minus square root of 6 over 4 square root of 15, okay? And normally you would multiply by square root of 15 over square root of 15, but for solving, you just take a calculator to this and say, okay, x equals negative 0.0998. Okay, and there you go. Okay, so in the next section, we'll talk more about solving, but right now it's just cross multiplying and then solving for x. Okay, and that's it.